Today's video is going to cover something that most of us take for granted. Water is the most abundant molecule on the Earth's surface and makes up around 70% of our bodies. However, all water is certainly not equal. When I was training as a doctor, the importance of water was certainly emphasised, but on reflection, we were really taught nothing about it that you couldn't learn in a single school science lesson. That's why most doctors will say things like drink X glasses of water a day or keep your fluids up if you are unwell. On face value, it seems like good advice, but can we assume that the water we are supplied with is optimised to provide us with our best health outcomes? It's worth spending some time on this, and hopefully, if you haven't already, you'll start your own investigations into your water sources to begin a brand new partnership with this elixir of life.
Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
People have known for centuries that poor water supplies were responsible for all kinds of ill health and misery. Our ancient ancestors didn't have to worry about invisible chemicals and industrial pollutants in their water supplies and could make quick assessments of the quality of their water by its clarity, smell and taste. They learnt that water flowing from glaciers and mountain springs was likely to be of the best quality, and some sources were revered so much that they remain famous to this day for their reputations as providing not only good water, but also potentially life-rejuvenating powers. Water from locations such as Lourdes, France, lying in the foothills of the Pyrenees, is even known as holy water. Whether you think this is mysticism or reality requires your own point of view, but as we'll see, there is much more to water than we might think. Disease in most major cities was rampant in the 1800s for a number of reasons, but one cause was certainly the dire situation with many water supplies. In their book Dissolving Illusions, Roman Bastianic and Susan Humphreys describe a typical situation. Without any sanitary infrastructure, human and animal waste would flow into the streets, ending up in the local streams and rivers, which happen to also be the people's primary water supply. Sanitary facilities designed for smaller populations failed. In the mid-1800s, public water supplies in McLean County, Illinois and Chicago were described as being contaminated with human and animal waste. The Chicago Medical Society frequently criticized the city's water supply, which after 1853 was drawn from Lake Michigan by means of a crude wooden inlet 600 feet long, close to where the sewage-filled Chicago River emptied. It wasn't a case of antibiotics and vaccines that caused the prevalence of disease and death to plummet, but proper sewage and rubbish disposal, and most vitally, clean water sources. Now, in the 21st century, the world faces a new contamination crisis with our water. Sometimes the public becomes more acutely aware of the problem, such as the Flint, Michigan water crisis in 2014, in which the city managed to expose thousands of children to toxic levels of lead. However, in these circumstances, it is far too late by the time they realise there's a major problem and the damage to health is already done. Another major concern in the modern era is that while water that is promoted as safe may not cause you many problems in the short term, it could be contributing to all kinds of chronic diseases, including cancer, in the long run. And some of the treatments to our water, such as chlorine, which is aimed at killing microorganisms, might keep your swimming pool looking clean, but shouldn't be introduced into our bodies as it can disturb our symbiotic life-giving microbes. Other common contaminants in city water supplies include heavy metals, aluminium, microplastics, and even pharmaceuticals. One of the most amazing properties of water is that it is known as the Universal Solvent, and this property is what makes life processes possible. Unfortunately, it means that thousands of non-life-sustaining substances can also dissolve in water, and some may reach toxic levels without us being able to see or smell anything wrong with the water. Studies in recent decades have revealed that hundreds of toxic chemicals are now being detected in humans, including in umbilical cord samples from newborn babies. So it's a good idea to make sure that these toxins are not coming into your body via your drinking water. Most of the time, these chemicals are getting in by accident, but sometimes substances such as fluoride are intentionally placed in water supplies. Fluoride might be okay to swirl around your mouth, but you shouldn't swallow it, as manufacturers of toothpaste will usually warn you about. Here in New Zealand, we also have a problem with nitrates seeping into some of our water supplies. This is particularly concerning as some studies have shown that nitrates may have an association with bowel cancer. Like many countries, New Zealand already has a high incidence of bowel cancer, but the mainstream media sometimes says the water isn't a problem, but at other times admits there might be a problem. In any case, it's not usually wise to wait for the government, as they are usually years behind the 8 ball. It also appears that there's more than just the nitrates that are the problem, because they are often accompanied by nitrosamines in contaminated water. These are definitely known to be carcinogenic in mammals. I've been in communication with some local researchers, and I may do a feature video on nitrates and related compounds in the future. One person who has been particularly interested in water quality and its relationship to chronic disease is Dr. Tom Cowan. As many of you will be aware, Tom and I are on the same page when it comes to pointing out the nonsense that the authorities are promulgating with regards to certain recent narratives. We both agree that nanoparticles that are claimed to be pathogenic viruses have never been shown to be infectious in nature or able to cause disease, and that indirect tests such as the PCR and antibody detection cannot be used to determine specific health states in a host. Dr. Cowan and Sally Morell's book, The Contagion Myth, details this, but also covers the problem of water quality, where they dedicate a chapter to it. They state, "It's clear that most water is sick and toxic and a major contributor to illness. If we are ever to change the course of the disease patterns in our world, it must start with clean, healthy water. Clean, healthy water should be completely free of any toxins. No chlorine, no fluoride, no aluminium, no lead, no pharmaceutical residues, no microplastics. Nothing should be present that is not a natural component of water flowing in a healthy mountain stream." In fact, they list water quality as one of the first things a doctor should ascertain when a patient sees them if they are serious about resolving health issues. They also refer to the fascinating work of Dr. Gerald Pollack and Dr. Gilbert Ling, who were the first to describe the 4th phase of water.
Droplets floating on water. We expect droplets to coalesce instantly with the water. The droplets persist for a long time.
Most of us are, of course, familiar with ice, water, and steam as the 3 physical states of water. But when it comes to how it behaves in some situations, water has another trick up its sleeve. 4th phase water is arranged in a crystalline structure when it is in proximity to a hydrophilic or water-loving surface. In this arrangement, it forms what is being termed as an exclusion zone, because other molecules and chemicals are unable to penetrate its structure. Instead of being liquid or solid, the pure water in this phase has a gel-like consistency. The water adjacent to exclusion zones remains disordered in that any chemicals or molecules can freely move around until they hit the organized exclusion zone.
And sure enough, you can see that what happened is that the particles began moving away from the interface between the gel and the water, and they just kept moving and moving and moving, and they wound up stopping at a distance that's roughly the size of one of your hairs.
This is quite an incredible discovery, as most of us were taught simplistic models of structures, such as a cell, where we thought the cytoplasm or fluid inside the cell, as well as fluids outside the cell, were essentially homogeneous solutions. In this oversimplified model, it appears things were just diffusing about passively, and it was only the cell wall that could provide any significant barrier to movement. Once again, the universe is more beautiful in its genius than we can ever imagine. It is thought that heat and light help to form larger exclusion zones both inside and outside the cells, which is why many people seek rejuvenation from things such as saunas and exposure to the morning sun. It may also explain what the body is trying to do when it raises its internal temperature, most dramatically with a fever. Hence the debate about whether using pharmaceuticals to suppress fever is actually a good idea. My personal preference is to avoid the aspirin and paracetamol and to let most fevers run unless they reach very high levels. So, what can we do to source the best possible water? If you live outside of a major city and have rainwater or a local spring, you are probably very fortunate, and chances are your water is of good quality. However, it would still be a good idea to monitor the water, and getting a toxicologist to formally test the water would be ideal, as you may not know the history of the region and potential surprise contaminants. If it looks good, then using a simple filter is all you will need. For most of us who are getting our water from the municipal supply, it is highly unlikely that the water will be of the highest quality. In fact, you should probably assume that it is not, and it would be foolish to trust such an important part of your health and well-being to city bureaucrats. As economist Dale Steinreich stated following the Flint water crisis, consuming government water is a bad idea. At its very best, it has a repulsive, overchlorinated swimming pool smell, and even worse, off-putting saturated chemical taste. At its worst, it can be tainted with everything from trace or higher levels of Viagra or estrogen to dangerous levels of lead. Unfortunately, most home water filters don't do anything near enough to provide you with high quality water. They will get out a lot of the heavy metals and the chlorine, so your water will taste much better, but plenty of invisible and tasteless nasties will remain in your water. To get out the fluoride, microplastics and nitrates, as well as other chemical contaminants, one of the only ways to do it at home is with a reverse osmosis system. Here in Australasia, an option is the PureTech Reverse Osmosis Dual Filter RO270. It's actually the one I have in my own kitchen, and no, this is not a paid ad. I just think they have one of the best systems. It filters down to 0.5 nanometer, so the spec sheet says it can even filter viruses. Well, I'm not worried about viruses, but it is good to know that most chemicals and other unwanted contaminants are being kept out. Keep in mind that the water is still not 100% pure, but you are getting pretty close. Another option, of course, is to consume bottled water. But if you do this, you need to know exactly where it has come from and what's been done with it prior to you ingesting it. Cheap, low-quality bottled water is sometimes just sourced from a municipal supply, has added chemicals, and offers no advantages. More expensive brands that come from high-quality sources are likely to be very pure and often have nicely balanced mineral compositions too. Ideally, the water should be in glass bottles, but this will also add to the cost. If you have a high-grade home filter system, then it is also worth storing your water in glass bottles rather than plastic. Some people consider that the highest quality water can only be that which has been oxygenated as well. This emulates the water that is found in places such as Lord, and may explain why water from such places is considered so special. In fact, even bathing in oxygenated water has been shown to increase oxygen levels in the blood. In the future, the water authorities may catch on to increasing oxygen levels in the reticulated supply. There are sophisticated ways of oxygenating water, but Cowan and Morrell also suggest that a simple way to do it at home is to fill an 8-ounce glass with your purified water and then stir it with a long-handled spoon to create a vortex in one direction and then the other, repeating several times. I think, like many things in life, the very action of paying more attention to something has more benefits than you can imagine. With water, I do not believe that it is any different. It doesn't hurt to spend some time tending the elixir that makes life on our planet possible. It goes beyond just drinking pure water or soaking in soothing baths. We are often mesmerized by cloud formations and waterfalls, and for centuries it has been understood that even the sound of water flowing down a stream or lapping on a seashore has beneficial effects for humans. Hopefully with this video I've introduced some new ways for you to appreciate healthy water. Keep the conversation going in the comments and let me know if you would like to know more about particular aspects of water and health. It is life, I think, to watch the water. A man can learn so many things. To help sustain my channel in this time of censorship, please support my work on Subscribestar. Link is in the description.